Hey, Sebastian, thank you so much for the time. How you doing today?
Good. How you been?
I have been all right, and I'm doing better now that I'm getting to talk to somebody who is not only on top of his game, but maybe one of the hardest working people in the entertainment business. You got this tour that has already kicked off and is stopping through Texas next weekend. You've got Bookie just finished filming season two. That's going to release on Max in December. You've got a really entertaining podcast with new episodes dropping on Tuesday. I mean, man, you're all over the place right now. It doesn't seem like there's any stopping you. So I guess kudos on the work ethic.
It's my father. I've been working. I had a lawn cutting business at 10 years old, and I'm allergic to grass. So that's kind of the mentality of my family. It's like, go out there and work. I don't care what your problems are, go make some money. So that kind of stuck with me the rest of my life. And I've been working. I just translated my work ethic into the entertainment business. I've been working way longer than I was at Honey Baked Ham glazing hams on Christmas break. You know, when you get a break of school, it wasn't vacation for me. It's like you're going from school and you're gonna go glaze hams, or you're gonna work at Olin Mills Portrait Studio selling portrait packages over the phone. So it's been it's been my life. It's just all about work.
You didn't even mention Fuddruckers, and I think
Fuddruckers.
you're working Fuddruckers at the age of 14. I remember Fuddruckers as a kid. I loved that place because I'm a really picky eater. And Fuddruckers, it had the toppings bar that you could just do whatever you wanted with the pickles and the tomatoes and the lettuce and the mustard or ketchup, whatever else. So at 14 is your responsibility to refill the toppings bar.
I started there as a busboy. I then moved to fries. And then I don't know if you remember this. This is back in what, 19, I'm going to say 88. They had a taco salad, but the bowl you could eat, right? I was responsible for dunking those bowls in the oil. So, and those topping bars, I don't know if you ever tried this move. You get the fries and then you put the cheese on top of the fries. You have a little cheesy fry. I'm telling you, bro, Fuddruckers does not get enough credit.
Fuddruckers fucks, as the kids like to say these days, or at least it used to back in the day. So as far as the tour is concerned, it's going to be here in Austin on Friday, August 9th, 7:30 start time at the Moody Center. Haven't seen a comedy show there just yet, but I've talked to people who have. Some folks that I know saw Nate Bargatze just a couple of months ago, and they said it's a fantastic venue for stand-up comedy. But this is actually a Texas four-step for you next weekend, starting in Houston, then Austin, then Dallas, and finishing up in San Antonio, all over the course of 4 days. And if that's not enough, you've got your family, including your two young kids, with you for much of this tour as well. Just how much are you guys getting out as a family in between shows to try and experience and enjoy whatever town it is that you're in?
Trying, in Houston, I think we're going to go see NASA, where that all happens. So anytime I get to the a city and I could kind of enjoy what that city has to offer, whether it be in Norfolk, we went to the USS Wisconsin and we took a tour of that. So I'm trying to get out there more than I have in the past. Generally speaking, I would go to a town, sit in a hotel room, wait to do the show, and that would be it. And I'm sitting there myself, what am I doing? Then I started playing golf. And I'm like, let me start playing golf in these cities, beautiful golf courses, what have you. Now I got a family. Start bringing them out, see these beautiful cities and what they have to offer. So yeah, it's a little tiresome. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I do have to kind of manage, if you're on the road with your family, kind of like when's the rest time and when's go time. But Texas, I've been coming to pretty much my whole career since 1998. Austin, Texas in particular, over the last 3 or 4 years, I think since COVID has really became a city where a lot of comedians moved to. Joe Rogan opened up a comedy club there. And I think comedy is really prevalent in Austin. And the people of Austin are really savvy when it comes to what they like is in their comedy. So I've even flirted with, oh, should we move to Austin? This was back in 2020, 2021, where everybody was talking about moving to Austin and what it had to offer people. So yeah, I really enjoy. I'm actually coming in a little earlier to do a few things in Austin. I got a friend out there, and we're gonna hang out.
Cool. So if you have the kids with you in Austin, I've got the perfect recommendation for you. Your kids are 7 and 5, is that right?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm a few years ahead of you. I've got almost 10 and almost 8-year-old. There's a place called the Thinkery. It's essentially a STEM museum where they can go and just play around, and there's like a subtle engineering element to it. It's a lot of fun. The kids love it. If you go early enough, you're not going to deal with the beating of the mid-afternoon crowd. So that's something that I think your family might enjoy. I don't want to spoil NASA for you, because this is probably a first time for you guys. We went to NASA a year ago, and I had the highest of expectations because I remember loving that place as a kid. It's a little bit underwhelming, if I'm being completely honest, Sebastian. I feel like they need to modernize things a little bit. I know you're a Chicago guy originally. I lived there for 7 years myself. I love that city. We took our kids to the museum that is near the University of Chicago, the Museum of Science and Industry, earlier this summer. And again, I was thinking it was going to be something grand, but they've let that museum fall into dilapidation to where some of the coolest stuff is broken down now. So it didn't quite pop like I was hoping it would with my kids in tow.
I don't know. I just think a space shuttle would be enough to get your juices going. What was lacking at NASA that you walked out of there and go, did you expect to go into a gravity machine, or what was the
I feel like we've got the technology at this point to allow us to deal with zero gravity. No, it's just, there is, look, and I realize I say this about a museum. It's just a lot of really old stuff, and there's an interactive element that was not on display as much as I thought it could have been. So yes, you do get to set foot in a real life space shuttle. They have it carved out, and you get to walk through and whatnot. But again, it was just underwhelming. Like everybody wants to do the VR machine where you're like flying through space and it's like shaking this little contraption around that everybody's sitting in. That was okay, but all in all, I feel like it abided by the rule of just about any museum, and that is anything more than 45 minutes to an hour, and you're probably pretty good. Like if I spend 2 hours in a museum, something has gone terribly wrong for me.
Yeah, I've never been a museum guy. When people put the headphones on and they sit in front of a thing and they listen to the story about I'm like, I'm tapped out, bro. I just give me the major points and let me get out of there. I want to see the shuttle. If you got anything from the moon that I could feel, some moon crater, great. After that, I'm good.
So the It Ain't Right tour, you have said in other interviews, has a larger focus on production values in terms of the live show itself, which if people have watched your previous stand-up, I'm thinking about the most recent one that was filmed in Vegas, there were some really cool special effects at the start of that show where it's like putting you in pictures with the old Rat Pack, and then there's a sort of 3D movement element going on as well. So what sort of production values can people expect to go see you on August 9th here in Austin?
I've always been a fan of going to a show. Like, for example, I saw Motley Crue in the 80s, and Tommy Lee spinning up doing the drums and whatnot. So there's a value to giving people an event. I didn't want people to walk into the arena and go, okay, it's an arena with a stage. I made the stage a triangle. I lit it up. It's the stairs. I lowered it. There's a triangle screen above me. The lighting is a little bit more elevated than it has been in the past. I'm coming out to the stage on a Vespa. I mean, there's things happening. Ultimately, the comedy's got to be the comedy. People got to walk out of there going, I laughed the hardest I've ever laughed. They don't really care about the lighting, this, that, and the other thing, but it adds to the experience subconsciously, whether they know it or not. And for me as a performer, performing in a big arena, I wanted to be as close to the audience as I possibly could. That's why I lowered the stage and I put stairs leading up to the stage, just in case I wanted to even go down, goof around with somebody in the crowd and do some crowd work very, very close. So yeah, I just wanted that feeling as a performer. And I think people, I've done 7 shows so far and people are really, really loving it.
I think that's brilliant also because this as somebody who's performed in every type of venue, smaller clubs, medium-sized clubs, theaters, and now arenas like this. The intimacy element is much more difficult to grasp in the arena setting, obviously. I mean, you're talking about performing to 15 to 20,000 people. So those little decisions right there, I'm guessing it goes a long way in helping people to really maybe pay closer attention or to feel that intimacy that sometimes can be lost in a bigger venue.
Yeah, especially with the lighting, I mean, you want the lighting focused on the stage. The screens are, we're so used to, watching everything on a screen. Even when the people come to a show, they're sitting in the third row, they're craning up to even look at the screen, but I'm right there, So, yeah, I took some time in trying to develop. It looks like we're filming a special, the way the lighting and everything looks on the screen. So I'm really proud of what we created. Plus, we got some great opening acts coming with me, and Pete Corielli and Pat McGann. Sometimes they're both with me, sometimes just one of them with me, and they're headlining comedians in their own right. A lot of comedians sometimes don't want the guy in front of them to be too funny. I'm like, forget that. Let's just give these people a great show, soup to nuts, and just have a great time. So we've been really enjoying ourselves on the road.
And people may recognize Pete Corielli because he is one half of the Pete and Sebastian show. New episodes every Tuesday. It's you guys' podcast. Very funny. There's a mix of guests sometimes, but sometimes it's just the two of you chopping it up. What do you love about getting to do that show with Pete?
Yeah, Pete, I met on a stand-up comedy tour in Canada.
Hmm.
Me, him, and two other comedians were in a van going to small towns in Canada performing, and we hit it off right from the get-go. And we used to talk on the phone, and there were such funny conversations. I'm like, we should really do a podcast and just basically record a phone conversation. And that's what we kind of did for the last 11 years. Just recently, we started adding guests just to give people a different look. And we've been having fun with the guests, but ultimately, really, really enjoy Pete's take on things. We're like kind of the odd couple. I'm a wine and cheese guy. He's a beer and peanut guy. And we tend to really kind of mesh together.
Okay, beer and peanuts versus wine and cheese. Each of you guys probably has an opinion on tipping. Just got into a conversation with this the other day. Obviously, the places where you tip, the obvious places where you tip, are places like restaurants. But what is the starting point for you in terms of tips as a guy who has worked in the service industry in the past? Because for me, the starting point is 20 to 25%. It can go way higher than that. If you are a complete a-hole and just negligent at your job, it can even go lower than that too.
Yeah, I think 20% is the barometer. Generally speaking, I don't go below 20%, regardless of service, because it's just like, all right, I don't know. I'm not trying to teach anybody a lesson. Like, I gave you 10% because you didn't bring my water on time. 20%, it only could go up from there. I generally found that tipping from the get-go, I did this in Mexico. I tipped the guy right off the bat. When you tip somebody right off the bat, they're on you. They're not only on you, they're going to give you, if you wine by the glass, they're going to give you a little bit more wine than they would normally. So I like the tipping up front. It kind of sets the tone. But I think tipping in general has gotten out of hand. It's like you go to a dry cleaner, the guy's got a tip jar. And it's like, I was at an automated a cashier at the airport asked for a tip, the machine. So it's just gotten out of hand.
What about you're staying at a hotel, and we always keep the do not disturb sign on our door handle until we're done, unless we're staying there for like 10 days or something. But if you're staying there for 3 or 4 days, you keep the do not disturb out there so that the maid isn't coming in over the course of those 2 or 3 days. But at the end of the stay, when I know the maid is going to be coming in and cleaning up after us, I'll leave like a 10 or a 20 on the pillow. Are you on board with that level of tipping?
I like that level of tipping, but I do the opposite. You might not want them in the room. I want them in the room. I want to come back after a show and have a nice turn down service. So I leave the tips during the day to ensure that we get a nice turn down, couple extra waters on the bedside table. It's all calculated, bro. And I think the maids, the housekeepers, are the ones who should be getting the tips, but a lot of people do not leave housekeeping tips And it's unfortunate because those people are working quite hard.
Oh, I agree with that. Same goes for the people who pick up your garbage every week. Like I make sure to hook the garbage guys up with a little something extra around Christmas time. But if there was a monthly tip process for the garbage guys, I may be in on that too, because they are doing one of the most thankless jobs on the planet and one of the most important jobs too. Because otherwise, if people stop picking up our trash, we're going to turn into either Greece or New York City, you know?
Mailman, maybe the UPS guy, gardeners. Those are the people that I think deserve the tip. As far as the guy making my smoothie, I don't know about that.
So I don't think you're supposed to tip your bookie necessarily, but you do play a bookie in the new Max show that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Are you a gambler in real life? Do you ever place any money down on games or anything?
I was early on in my life, mid 20s. I used to play blackjack a lot when I used to go to Las Vegas and never won. It was just awful. And I came to the realization the only time that you walk out of a casino with money is when you perform there. So that's the route I've taken. I go and take the casino's money on the other end and I don't give it back to them. So I don't bet sports. I don't do any of that. But the show Bookie kind of centers around a guy, Danny, who is a bookie in Los Angeles where legalized gambling might come soon. And how does that affect him and his business? And from my understanding, in talking to bookies ain't going nowhere. Everybody loves their bookie. If you know, a lot of people don't like a paper trail of money, and sometimes if you go online and these apps that leaves a little paper trail of what you're doing. If you put in a wrong bet and you call the bookie 5-10 minutes later, go, you know what? Let me change that. No problem. With these online services, sometimes you're locked in and that's it. So there's a personal relationship that bookies have with their clients that is unmatched.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a barber, where I don't know if there's as much of a psychologist element to things, but there is that relationship that you foster for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of people think bookies are breaking legs and breaking arms. In this particular show, Bookie on Max, I play a bookie with a heart. I don't really like to beat people up, so I give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, you actually get a little bit messed up, especially at the start of that show. My wife and I were watching episode 1 a week ago, and the finger ends up going in a completely opposite direction. So kudos to the makeup or the effects department for making that one look real, because it did look like your finger had been popped out of place.
They did a great job.
People may also know this, or maybe they don't, but you had a role in The Irishman as well, and I know you've talked in interviews about a really special moment between you and Bob De Niro, where he really helped you get to your emotional core and learning how to shed tears on cue. There's only a certain limit that you have to tears in terms of the number of takes. I don't want to ask you about that though, because everybody else has talked with you about that particular moment from that movie. Sebastian, I want to ask you what it's like to get killed by Robert De Niro in a film. So what the hell was that like?
It's funny that scene where I play Joe Gallo in that scene where I come racing out of a restaurant and I go through a window. So prior to shooting that, Scorsese, and this is the first time I've worked with this level of talent, Scorsese, De Niro, Pacino, Pesci. Uh, Scorsese's mapping out the scene. He's like, Sebastian, okay, you're gonna go through the window. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, this guy thinks I'm this. Am I going through the window? And I'm not gonna tell him I'm not. I'm like, do they have a stunt guy? So he's continuing to tell me, okay, when you go through the window, and then finally someone says, Mari, we got a stunt guy for that. He goes, oh, okay. And I'm thinking, God, thank God, because I don't know if I could throw myself through a plate glass windows. Obviously, it's not glass; it's some synthetic thing, whatever they had. So the guy that you see coming out of that scene is not me. Now, dumb me, dumb. One night, I'm sitting at home with my daughter, and she was talking about movies because she had just seen me in Mario Brothers. I said, "Oh, Daddy's in another movie." he's in The Irishman. You want to see a scene. So I put that scene on. A 7-year old daughter. She sees daddy getting shot
Oh,
going through a window and she starts crying. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That was a learning experience for me as a father. Like you want to share what you do with your kids, but maybe that was the not the best movie to show her.
hey, for you as the dad of two, I love asking fathers this because you get such a range of answers. What do you think the biggest challenge is for parents in 2024?
Well, obviously, I think a lot of people find that social media and giving them kids this iPhone or an iPad seems to be a huge issue for parents. And for us, we've taken the approach where the kids just don't they get TV on the weekends for a short amount of time. We go out to dinner. There's no iPads. It's a lot more work. Don't get me wrong. I mean, to give your kid an iPad at dinner and go here, and then you get to talk to your wife or whatever is easy. But to sit with them and to come up with games, I'm doing games from the 80s with my kids. I'm doing the thumb game. I'm doing the slap on I'm doing magic at the table, but you connect with your kids that way. That's how I connected with my family around the dinner table. So I think that's a huge challenge for parents. And it's not a challenge. You just can't buy into it. You just can't, you got to work, you can't just, that's easy. So yeah, I think that's a big challenge. Obviously you get on social media later on in life and then you've come up with the bullying and this and that and the other thing. So I think social media in general is not a good thing for kids to be a part of.
You're right about the screens because as soon as they're locked in on a screen, they are no longer capable of being present little humans. And that's the end goal is that you have these present, independent little humans who become full-fledged adults who can think and act for themselves. And around the dinner table, it's important to engage in conversations in the games. And we have question of the night and we go around and each talk about what we're thankful for in the day. And then also in the car, too. I think the car is a great place for conversations because there's nowhere to go, obviously. So you can observe the world around you and then also just talk about that which awes you or that which you find amusing or funny or frustrating or whatever else.
I agree. The car is a great way to connect with your kids because just to your point, they're locked in. They ain't going nowhere. It's just you and them. And again, games where you want to be. My daughter just yesterday, I took her to gymnastics and we play. Would you rather? Would you rather live in a house with glass all over the floor or a tent? It's like they come up with these amazing scenarios, and you don't get that when the kid's playing Fortnite.
No, you don't. All right, last thing now, Sebastian, because there are all sorts of types of stand-up gigs that can be performed. I actually heard you tell Andrew Santino and Bobby Lee that you did corporate gigs, though, which surprised me because I've never heard a comedian speak with anything but disdain about corporate gigs other than the money. So what is it that you enjoy about corporate gigs?
Well, everybody's there. They work with the same company. It's kind of same mindset. So you're walking into maybe a sales conference or I just did a guy's 98th birthday party at an aquarium in Atlanta. It's great for crowd work. A lot of people know each other there. And it's like, oh, he's making fun of John from sales. Everybody seems to be on board or what have you. You got to be clean. You can't, say anything that might be derogatory or blue humor. And that's kind of my sweet spot. I don't say anything controversial. And yeah, I mean, it's easy. It's in and out. Sometimes you're performing at some beautiful hotels. And yeah, I don't know. I've always thrived in that arena.
Well, it's not a hotel, but those of you watching or listening right now have a chance to go see Sebastian at another beautiful venue for stand-up. That would be the Moody Center Friday, August 9th at 7:30. It is a part of a Texas four-step that he's engaging in, starting in Houston, then Austin, then Dallas, and San Antonio. You can go to SebastianLive.com to snag tickets for that. Also, check out his podcast, The Pete and Sebastian Show, through that. And watch season 1 of Bookie on Max. Season 2 comes out at the end of the year. Sebastian, thank you so much for the time today. It's been a real pleasure. Safe travels to and from Texas next weekend.
I appreciate you having me on. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and we'll see you in Austin.
Still watching or listening on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or elsewhere, I would appreciate you subscribing right now and click thumbs up or heart to like today's episode. Thanks to Gentleman Jesus for the intro and outro music. Hear more of his work at gentlemanjesus.com. Thanks to you for hanging out. For more of the show and to connect on social media, visit booksonpod.com. Talk to you next time on Books on Pod.